Welcome everyone to this discussion talk on violence against children. This is first part of my discussion in which I'll be focusing mainly upon childhood maltreatment, which includes both child abuse and child neglect. So before beginning the discussion, let us understand what violence is. Violence, as we have already discussed in my previous talks, that it is anything that hurts or destroy any person. It can be experienced in variety of forms. However, the major form in which we understand violence is physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. But there might be many other forms of violence which is as severe as these three forms of violence. When these acts are done against children, this is considered violence against children. And by children, we mean all infants, toddlers, and young children below the age of 18. If they are exposed to violence, they are abused or maltreated, or if they are put in a situation where they experience secondary violence by observing other people being the victim of violent activities, it is considered violence against children. This can happen in their family, in their community, in their society, or through the media exposure. So, violence against children has a large meaning, and anything that hampers the children's well-being is considered violence. When we'll be talking about the forms of violence against children in this talk series, I will be talking mainly about child maltreatment, which includes both child abuse and neglect. We'll be also talking about child trafficking, child labor, and then finally the secondary violence, which is child exposure to violence. So we'll be talking about all these four. First talk of this part is about child abuse and neglect. So let us start with Mary Ellen's story. A friendly visitor, Ella Wheeler, visited an apartment in New York City and she found a child named Mary Ellen battered and beaten. Unfortunately, there was no law which could protect her. Why? As in all families, she was considered a property of their parents. Miss Wheeler, being a kind hearted lady, she went to Henry Berg, who was working at American Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. So that is a wonderful anecdote to think. There was a society to prevention of cruelty for animals, but there was no society, no help for prevention of cruelty against children. Both Miss Wheeler and Henry Berg went to court, and from court they won Mary Ellen's freedom from their parents. Following this, in 1875, they founded the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, much after they founded the Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. When we talk about forms of child abuse, we find that there are three abuses: physical abuse, which is prevalent in about 28%, emotional abuse, which is about 8%, sexual abuse, which is about 30%, and then childhood neglect, which is about 34%. Let us first talk about physical abuse. Physical abuse is any activity which inflict physical injury in the child. It may be result of punching, beating, kicking the child, biting, shaking the child brutally, burning, or otherwise any mean of any act by any act harming a child is physical abuse. Now this doesn't matter that there is any physical injury visible or invisible or not. If a child is subjected to all these behaviors by anybody, it is a physical abuse. Unfortunately, for child violence cases, usually we are not aware about the incidents. Why? The child is not grown enough to tell others about the experiences he or she is suffering with, and therefore it is very important for doctors, teachers, social health, social workers, psychiatric social workers, counselors to understand and know the indicators which may indicate the possibility of physical abuse with child. So these are some of the indicators which indicate that a child is being subjected to physical abuse. The first is unexplained injuries. When the child have injuries and the cause is unexplained, the child is not able to tell the how he or she got that injuries, it indicates the possibility of physical abuse. When there is repeated injuries such as bruises, welts and burns, repeated cuts, abrasion and laceration, cuts, scratches, injuries at various stages of healing. So when there are multiple injuries and each of these injury at a different stage of healing, it simply says that the all these injuries have been received over a period of time, and these kind of continuous injuries definitely indicate that the child is being subject to physical abuse. Small circular burns like cigarette burns, burns with donut shapes, which we usually get when a child is being punished for not following orders or instructions. And even if there is a significant delay in obtaining medical care by parents or caregivers or by anybody, it indicates physical abuse. Second form of abuse is emotional abuse, which includes any act which damage immediately or ultimately. Immediate damage or damage which usually occurs in a long term to the behavioral, cognitive, affective and physical functioning of a child. So any act which does not create a physical injury but ultimately affect their physical functioning, behavioral functioning, cognitive functioning are called emotional abuse. These activities may include but not limited to criticizing a child. If a child is being always criticized, it hampers their emotional well-being. Name calling, ridiculing them, especially in front of others, blaming them for things which are done and many of the time act which are not done by them, screaming at them, withholding love and affection, not showing love and affections just to train them or make them learn to be in discipline, unpredictable responses. So sometime for an activity the person is pleased, happy, and at the other time for the same activity the person is behaving in different way. And double message communication, mass communication with showing something else and indicating something else. All these activities and many other activities may be considered detrimental to a child's functioning and is considered emotional abuse. Now, how to identify emotional abuse in a children? It is believed that the child who is subjected to long-term emotional abuse, they will show clingy and indiscriminate attachments with people. They act out. Usually, their activities are different from their normal age group children, and usually their behaviors are considered a behavior problem. They may be shown withdrawn, depressed, or apathetic, not being influenced by anything that happens around them. Sometimes they exhibit exaggerated fearfulness, responding to small incidences with fear. And a very crucial feature indicator of emotional abuse is bedwetting and swelling. They are not able to control their physical urges. Third form of emotional abuse is child sexual abuse, which includes any act which use the child for the purpose of sexual need or desires. This may include but not limited to touching their private parts, fondling with their private parts, oral stimulation, penetration of genital or anal opening. Often all these behaviors are included with secrecy, telling the children not to tell all these to with anybody. Many of the times childs are bribed to engage in such activities using tricks like play and secrecy or surprise. Sometimes they are threatened to take part in this such activities or any other form of coercion which includes or which subject the child to these activities are considered childhood sexual abuse. There are indicators. Among all these three forms of sexual of child abuse, physical, emotional, and sexual, this is the most difficult form of abuse, knowing about which is very difficult because the child never tells it to anybody. The indicators of sexual abuse are inappropriate sexual behaviors of children. So if a child show knowledge or behavior about detailed and age inappropriate sexual activities, if they are engaged in appropriate, unusual, or aggressive sexual behaviors with their peers or even with their toys, if younger children show compulsive and discreet masturbation, excessive curiosity, age inappropriate curiosity about sexual genitals, sexual activities, and seductive behaviors with peers or adults. All these acts indicate that a child might be the victim of sexual abuse. There are some physical indicators which can be seen easily and which can indicate to sexual abuse are sexually transmitted disease, genital discharge or infections, especially in case of girl child, trauma or irritation to anal and genital areas, pain during urination or defecation, difficulty in walking or sitting down due to pain, and somatic symptoms which does not have any direct or indirect somatic regions. They may indicate that the child might have been subject to sexual abuse. There are behavioral indicators of sexual abuse, especially in young children. Remember that very young children, especially child below the age of 6 or 7, it is very difficult to understand what kind of abuse they are going through. So there are some behavioral indicators which definitely indicate the possibility of sexual abuse. These are bedwetting if the child is not able to control his natural calls and is usually indulge in bedwetting. It indicates sexual abuse. Fecal swelling. Fecal swelling is basically leakage of stool that a child cannot control. This might be due to physical causes also when a child has constipation or he has colon infection and other thing. But if it is proved that there is no physical cause of this fecal swelling, it may indicate that the child is victim of sexual abuse. Eating related disturbances, unexplained fear or phobias, sudden change in their school performances, sudden change in their school behaviors, occurrence of regressive behavior, difficulty in concentrating on anything, and sleep disturbances for which there is no medical or physiological explanation. All these may indicate that a child might be subject to sexual abuse. The fourth form of child maltreatment is child neglect, which simply indicate that when a parent or caregiver fails the fails to provide a child with food, clothing, shelter, supervision, medical treatment, emotional care, which a child deserves at his or her age. When they don't get all these, it simply indicates that the child is the victim of childhood neglect. There are some indicators which indicate that the child is being neglected. It is when a child appears poorly nourished or is usually seen in inadequate clothing, when he or she appears consistently tired or listless without any logical or obvious reason, inconsistent attendance at school, which simply indicate that the caregiver is not concerned about his or her school attendance and performance, poor hygiene, which indicates that there is nobody to care to, and unable to relate well with others, which simply indicates that the child is not able to form good social relations or social bonding. All these factors are among many other factors which indicates the possibility of child neglect. What cause child maltreatment, abuse, whether abuse or neglect? The first and foremost is lack of parenting skills. Now remember, the lack of parenting skill is not a direct cause of childhood maltreatment, but it may be a contributory factor to childhood maltreatment. Lack of parenting skills simply indicate to parental ignorance about the developmental changes and demands of a child. So if a parent does not understand in what developmental ages, what are the developmental markers, what are the developmental needs of the children, and how a children's needs should be taken care of in a particular age, it simply indicates that the parent lacks parenting skills, and it does not directly cause child maltreatment but can create conditions in which the maltreatment of the children happens. Some other direct causes of maltreatment are parental stress. It is seen that if parents are under stress due to any reason, they usually indulge in child maltreatment. If there are family hardship, family is not doing well, poor poverty prevalent in family, unemployment among family, within family, all these lead to childhood maltreatment. Alcohol and substance abuse by parents or caregiver may ultimately lead to abuse. Economic difficulty, poverty, domestic violence, one of the major reasons for childhood maltreatment. When there is severe domestic violence into the family, both the parents and other relatives does not care for the child. Previous victimization, if the parent himself or herself is being victimized or have been the victim of childhood abuse and neglect, they simply don't understand it as a different forms, and they usually believe that it's common with any children, and if they are doing so, it is not very unwanted. Depression and other psychological illness among parents and caregiver is also linked to childhood maltreatment. There are several health consequences of child abuse and maltreatment. We can classify them into different categories. The first category is physical health consequence. When a child is subject to abuse and neglect, they usually show marked physical problems, especially abdominal or thoracic injuries. Many of the times they also show brain injuries. It is also linked childhood abuse. Recent studies says that childhood abuse are linked with marked brain changes, the capacity to understand and process emotions, bruises and welts, burns and scalds, problems in central nervous system, injuries related to central nervous system. Sometimes these abuses may lead to disability, permanent or temporary, fractures, laceration and abrasions, and ocular damage. Usually, especially when the child is often slapped by elders, their ocular nerves might get damaged and they may found it, they may get it permanently damaged. There are sexual and reproductive consequences of childhood abuse, reproductive health related problems, sexual dysfunctions, the possibility of sexually transmitted disease, including HIV/AIDS, and unwanted pregnancy in case of teenage child, or common sexual consequences of childhood maltreatment. And there are many psychological and behavioral consequences of childhood maltreatment. These are when child are abused in their childhood, they may develop alcohol and drug abuse. They have marked cognitive impairment, their ability to process information is impaired. They are usually they lack problem solving skills. They may show delinquent behavior. They themselves may become violent with their peers and with their youngers, and they may involve in risk taking behaviors. They show psychological symptoms, marked psychological problems such as depression, anxiety, developmental delays, eating, sleep disturbances. Due to all these abuses and their impact on this, they can have the feeling of shame and guilt. They can consider themselves guilty for whatever happened with them. More in some of the cases, they may show hyperactivity. In almost all of the cases, the child is unable to form good relationships. They have poor school performance. Their self esteem deteriorates. They may develop post traumatic stress disorders, psychosomatic disorders, and in few cases, they may engage in self harm and suicidal behaviors. So, all these are psychological and behavioral health consequences of a childhood maltreatment. It is generally agreed that identifying a childhood maltreatment is very difficult. And one marked reason for that is child does not tell. Now the question is why they don't tell. There are four major factors which hinders or restrict a child to reveal their abusive experiences. Number one is patterns of family secrecy. The child is told, trained from the beginning that a family matter must not be discussed with others. Whether or not a child is being abused, it is a common pattern of rearing in most societies that family matters should not be discussed out of this. And due to this learning, even if the child is being abused, they may follow this pattern of family secrecy. The second reason is the fear of abandonment. They believe that if they reveal this truth to others, their parents, caregiver, or the person whom the child loved the most will be taken away and they will be abandoned. They will be alone. They will feel lonely. They will lack and they will lose the love and care they are getting otherwise. Due to this fear of abandonment, they usually prefer to be quiet. Fear of getting loved ones in trouble. In most of the cases, the abusers are their loved ones and they don't want to get them in trouble. And finally, most importantly, they have great sense of blame or responsibility of what is happening with them. They believe that they are being subjected to this kind of activities because they have some problem within themselves, and due to this self blame they hide these activities from others. There are several risk factors as well as protective factors for maltreatment, for preventing maltreatment. So risk factors are poverty, families with poverty, families where parents are divorced, families with cases of addiction, parents with stress, parents with limited or no education, families which live in isolation, families in which parents have history of childhood maltreatment, family system which promote violence, permissive parents, and control oriented parents. All these kind of family circumstances are risk factor for child maltreatment. In such families, chances of child being maltreated are high. On the other hand, there are some protective factors which may reduce the chances of maltreatment. They are nurturing and attachment. Parents who are nurturing, nurtured, and they show attachments. Knowledge of parenting skills, knowledge about child and youth development stages and need. If the parent have these knowledge, the chances of maltreatment is less. Parental resilience, the resilience which help parent to deal with any outside stress, poverty, lack of employment, loss of employment. If they are resilient enough to deal with this, it simply help a child and it reduces the chances of maltreatment. Families with lots of social connections have less maltreatment chances, possibilities. And if the parents have concrete support group, support system, the chances are less. So these are protective factors, and these may be ensured that parents may be ensured, should be ensured that these things are available to them. Now let us quickly discuss child abuse in India, the cases of child abuse in India. We are a country where children are treated like God, considered representation of God. And thus, Indians believe that the cases of childhood maltreatment, childhood abuse is a Western concept. It's an alien concept which does not happen in India. However, a study in 2007 by Ministry of Women and Child Development was an eye-opener. This study reported that about 150 million girls and 73 million boys under the age of 18 have been subjected to forced sexual intercourses and other forms of sexual violence. This study also reported that in 2002, about 53% reported cases of child homicide was there in India. This study clearly shown that the child in India is subject to different kinds of abuse, and especially in the 5 to 12-year bracket, the child are at most risk of abuse and exploitation. Some statistics related to physical abuse. The study show that 2 out of every 3 children are physically abused sometime in their life. Out of all those 69% children physically abused in 13 states which were sampled under the study, 54.68% were boys. Over 50% of children in all sample states were subjected to one or other forms of physical abuse. In all these physically abused children, about 88.6% were abused by their own parents. 65% of school-going children reported facing corporal punishment in schools. 62% of the corporal punishment was found in government and municipal schools, public schools. Children in state of Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Bihar and Delhi consistently reported higher rates of abuse in all forms as compared to other sample states. Most children did not report the matter of physical abuse to anyone, and about 50.2% children worked 7 days a week. Let us see the incidences of sexual abuse. About 53.22% children reporting having faced one or more forms of sexual abuse. Like physical abuse, incidences were higher in Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Bihar, and Delhi. 21.9% children reported severe forms of sexual abuse and 50.76 other forms of sexual abuse. About 5.69% reported sexual assault. Children on street, children as child worker, children in institutional care reported highest incidence of sexual abuse. And in about half of the cases, the person who abused the children's child sexually was a person known to them, person in the position of trust and responsibility. And like in all other abuse cases, most children did not report the matter to anyone. Every second children simply means about 50% of the children reported facing emotional abuse. This was equal among boys and girls. In about 83% of the cases, parents were the abusers, and about half of the girls wished they were boys. So simply the girls believe that they are being emotionally abused only because they are girls. Due to all these incidences and this eye-opening study by the ministry in 2007, there were strict legislatory changes in Indian legal system to protect the rights of children. We'll be discussing about these in next video. Thank you. Jai Hind.